And we're live.
Hey, salespeople! What's up? This is Keenan. You are listening to Top to Bottom, Sales Top to Bottom, where you get your weekly dose of all kinds of good sales biz. I'm your host, Keenan. I am with the lovely Becc Holland. Becc, Fox News settled for $750 million. You think they had something to hide?
Settled what?
She's not updated. She's in Paris right now. She's not updated on
I don't
news.
I don't listen to Americans anymore.
They had to settle $787.5 million for a defamation suit.
Against who?
Against
Dominion voting machines for saying that they were what's the word, for saying they were changing votes for Biden, and it destroyed their reputation, because if someone thinks your machines can be messed around with, or that you would actually go in and influence the election, counties and whatnot will stop buying their machines.
So the question was, do I think that they were guilty?
You think Fox is hiding something?
Well, I think everyone is. So yes.
Yeah.
Right. And
no one writes a check. Nobody writes a check for $755 million unless they don't want anybody to see what's going on.
No one writes a check for $10 unless they don't want you to see something.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
And with that, we're on to the first segment of our podcast, which is
Email Teardown.
This is the segment where Keenan and Becc tear down emails and messages that were sent over to them. Now, on to the first email. This one, the subject line is tracking time. Hey, Keenan, I came across your LinkedIn profile and thought it would make sense to reach out. At my company, Time Rewards, we've developed a new time tracking app that allows consulting companies like a sales growth company to streamline their workflow and reduce manual work by using our custom integrations and reminder prompts. To date, over 300 consulting companies have used our tool and have been able to save 10 plus hours a week on payroll, invoicing, and compliance-related tasks. Would be awesome if you could try it for free. And let me know what you think. Right here, and then he sends the link. Thanks. P.S. We also have a Bamboo HR and QuickBooks integration, and we're also DCAA compliant. And then at the bottom it says, if you don't want to hear from me anymore, just let me know. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this email?
He's gonna let him know.
He's gonna let him know.
I'm gonna let him know. Look, man. First, it doesn't apply to me. Just doesn't apply to me. Because the consulting that they're talking about, that I can gather, is that this is about billing for consultants' hours. So people have the problem if I have 5, 10, 50, 100, 500, 1,000 consultants all over the country of the world doing billing for clients, that timekeeping can become very frustrating or difficult. And if you don't do it properly, it could cost you lots of money, right? It costs you millions of dollars if you're not billing the right clients for the right hours, or you're not paying the person for their time billed, blah, blah, blah. I don't have that. We don't have billable consultants. So the whole entire email was flat. Like, it lost me in 2 seconds. He didn't understand his target market. He saw consulting and just sent it. It was dumb.
What about you, Becc? What do you think about this email?
I mean, it's the same as every other email.
Yeah, they're all the same.
They really are. There's two things I want to clue in on here. I came across your LinkedIn profile, so I thought it made sense to reach out. And I'm like, well, why?
Yep.
What about his LinkedIn profile made you think that it makes sense for you to reach out? And I start getting upset, because I'm like, every single time you're just wasting his time. Like, he reads this and you wasted his time. And you do that at scale, and all of a sudden he loses time and time and time and time and more time, and can't focus on the things that actually matter, because you prioritize something for him that he wouldn't have prioritized himself, that didn't help him in any way, shape, or fashion. So I'm just like, stop wasting people's time. If you have a point and you have a problem that you can solve, get to it, and quickly. And if you don't, then don't send the email. It's just not that difficult, in my opinion. For your sake too, save your own time. The second piece here, and then we can move on, is you got to stop telling me that things are for free when it's like, oh, well, I can punch you in the face for free. That's like, oh. Or people will be like, a $999 value. I'm like, to you, or hypothetically someone who bought it. But to me, this isn't valuable at all because I certainly wouldn't have paid any money for it. So I'm like, stop saying that things are free. Mm-hmm. Next email. It's too close to my bedtime to get this like riled up about it.
Go back. Go back.
Now on to the next message. This one is from LinkedIn and it says, hello. I hope your business look like well. I apologize for accessing your profile without your permission. Your profile shows that you have great experience. What I love about LinkedIn in particular is the ability to meet and connect with interesting people to effortlessly share associations or ideas. Therefore, I think this could be a reasonable opportunity to get to know each other and our shared institutions better. I love connecting to your network. I hope you will accept my invitation. I am waiting for your reply. Becc, what are your thoughts on this message right here?
Like, I have enough friends. Can't even keep up with the ones that I've got. Stop talking about connecting with me. Stop talking about sharing ideas. Stop talking about having coffee with me or picking my brain or getting to know one another. Just stop. If you're talking about any of that, just stop talking.
Keenan, any last thoughts on this message?
The one part I love is what did they say in the very beginning?
I hope your business look like well. I apologize for accessing your profile without your permission.
Yeah, it's like me grabbing your ass, man, and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to grab your ass. I know it's not appropriate."
Oh, what a perfect opportunity to bang the horn. But continue, Makita.
That's really what it's like. It's like, I know it's inappropriate to grab your ass, but I'm going to grab your ass anyways and say, "Hey, I know it's inappropriate. My hand's on your ass, but do you mind if I keep it there?" I mean,
well, my first thought, men, just because he buys you dinner doesn't mean you owe him anything.
Now you tell me this back.
Like, I hope your businesses are like well. Like, my first thought when I read that message was they're like, sorry for accessing your profile. I'm like, did you break into my LinkedIn? It's just bizarre. I'm like, people, just start trying more. I don't know. Like, I just get too honest on these things. Now that they're at 8 p.m. for me, I just get far too honest. Let's just go on to the next topic. I'm going to get upset. I'm going to start saying what I think, which we all know that 99% of the time I don't. And I'm going to quickly land on CNN for very bad reasons.
Well, on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Sales Mythology.
This is the segment where Becc and Keenan demystify common myths in the sales industry. So the first myth of today is you should use "we work with blank who do blank" as your main value prop. Becc, what are your thoughts on this one? We're starting out with you.
I think that Keenan should start. I really do.
Is this your pass for this episode?
No. But I do think that Keenan should start.
No, you don't get two passes. So it's your pass.
I want to serve the right. Okay. No, that gives you too much power. Fine, I'll go. Okay. It's too much power too early.
We still have 30 minutes on this podcast.
I know. So, and I see every single value prop structure like this. We help blank do blank. And my problem with it is never anchored around something that someone can't do. And I'm like, if they can still achieve their metrics and achieve their goals in their current state, they're fine. It doesn't matter who you help or how you help them. If you have to start at their metrics and work your way backwards and say, what are the metrics that are probably most important to them? And what are the metrics that they usually can't hit because of something? And it's like, start the thought process there. I'm not going to solve it unless it's usually anchored to a metric or a goal, like in relationship to the metric. So Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. And he basically says that, yeah, oddly enough, and his thesis is like, essentially the punchline of it is there is no problem A problem isn't a problem in absence of a metric. So he basically says that you can only have a gain, a positive gain, without a negative repercussion when a goal is present. So I'm like, you have to think about their goal or their metric and what is their win and what can they not do? What can they not achieve because, of the things that you help resolve? So every single company that I see is like, we help blank do blank. And it's like lack of revenue, leaving revenue on the table all day long, lack of blank. But I'm like, you're not tying that to what can they not do. And if they can do everything just fine, then you don't have a sale. You don't have a problem.
What about you, Keenan? What do you think?
I like what Becc said about the you don't have a problem unless you have a goal, right? Is that how you put it? Okay.
Yeah, you can't. A problem's not a problem in absence of a metric or a goal.
Yeah. Okay. So a problem is not a problem absent a goal or a metric. I like to change that to an expectation. Now we can measure that expectation, put a metric to it, but people have expectations, and those expectations drive that. So I like what Becc said there, and what Peterson JP said. In the main, I think JP is a knucklehead, but
yeah.
But what I'd also like to say is that most people I don't care what other people do. We've helped people do. I don't care. Like, we're talking about me. We're talking about me. But if you feel compelled that you need I see me as the buyer, but if you feel compelled at some degree or some level to create social proof, put it at the end of the email, or because it's usually an email, and then don't say we helped companies do, right? Say we help companies who were struggling with, right? So if you're going to say, look, we help, I don't know what kind of business I'm in. I'm in manufacturing cost cutting, right? So if I'm in manufacturing cost cutting, you should say something like, look, we've helped companies who were wasting 30% of their profit on manufacturing waste or defects. So and because of A, B, and C, root causes, we help companies who had this problem because of this reason. If this is something you're struggling with, I'd love to talk to you how we could solve it for you. So I don't get them into what's coming out. I get them focused back in on where you are now. So that social proof isn't about social proof about me. Hey, check me out. This is why you should hire me. This social proof is if you look, feel, or smell like this person, you might want to talk to us, because that's how we work as our minds work. It's how we process these things. That's why before and afters work so well. It's I feel like this person, right? So there's so many of them. That's why so many are good, because you have some that have people who are like, they're pushing their belly out and they're white as a ghost, and the next one they're sucking it up and they're tan. And he was like, yeah, that was me. But then you have another one with a person who's literally like 150 pounds overweight, and let's just say they're carrying the weight in their midsection and in their upper legs, and they see the other person in the midsection. They're like, that was me. That's me. I can relate to that. If you could do that for them, I want you to do it for me. Those things go nowhere if you only show the person, after the fact, and you didn't say what the problems were. So simply put, if you're going to do it, simply start, we've helped them who are struggling with because of, if this sounds like you or you're experiencing this, love to talk to you.
All right. The next sales myth of today is you should change the way you sell depending on industry. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Stupid. Becc, you're up.
Becc, on to you.
Why do you think it's stupid?
I just said stupid. I'm tired of having this conversation. I'm tired of having stupid conversations. I am. Because it suggests, look, when someone says you need to change the way you sell based on the industry or the product or the service, all it tells me is you're a product-centric person. It tells me you have no understanding of how people make a decision. It tells me you have no understanding the power of change management. It tells me all you are is transaction-based. Because gap selling or selling should never change whether I'm asking you to marry me, right? Whether I'm convincing you to loan me money, whether I'm asking if you want to go to a concert with me, whether I'm trying to convince you that our marriage is in trouble and that we need to go see a therapist, or I'm trying to sell you a $55 million enterprise ERP system, enterprise resource planning system. It doesn't matter. It's trying to influence change. And any asset that continues to try to fucking argue that you need to change the way you sell based on who the industry or the product is just a dipshit. So no, it's stupid. I'm tired of explaining it.
I Becc, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, yeah, I decline as well. I will say what's important to me is that you sell differently based on buyer persona, which I don't see people do for some reason. And the litmus test for this for me is when I hear people talk about committee selling or selling to multiple people in the room. And I've heard a number of different people say like, hey, you need to get multiple decision makers in the room and multiple stakeholders in the room and get them to agree about the problem that they're solving. And I legitimately couldn't disagree more, because when you get all of those different buyer personas in the room, a problem's only a problem in absence in the presence of a metric. So the metrics that they're trying to hit are completely different in that room. So what they're trying to use that product hypothetically to solve is completely different for each person. So if I'm a marketer, I'm only interested on how this product, service, etc. will help me hit more MQLs. If I'm a BDR leader, then I'm only interested in how this is going to help me book more meetings. If you talk to me about close one revenue or upsell and cross sell, it's like you're not really hitting home for me. And so when you get multiple decision makers in a room and trying to get them to agree of what the problem is, what they find worth solving, it is in complete, like, you're completely ignoring the idea that they have a different business objective that they're measured on for each single buyer persona. So I'm like, they're never going to agree because they're goal to do different things. So in terms of industry, now I will say, to the Myth's credit, every single once in a while, I will see like some nuances within industry of like legal or like HVAC that can be helpful, but by and large, I'm in complete agreement with Keenan. Like,
so
I'm like, start with buyer persona and then work your way to industry. But I never see even people hit buyer persona. So I'm like, I don't have hope to think that you should take the time to move on to industry.
So you triggered something. So I'll leave this because I made a giant assumption. To me, even in every scenario you put down, the selling doesn't change. So what we really need to define is selling. To me, selling is the process of influencing somebody to change. That doesn't change. Now, what I will concede is managing the sale can change by industry. No question. Managing the sales process, managing the sale can change for industry. But selling does not change.
Any last thoughts, Keenan, before we move on to the next segment?
No. I think I said what I needed to say.
There we go. Well, on to the next
question from Polly. We'll see if we can get it in the question section later.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Take it or leave it.
All right, this is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Becc and Keenan let us know whether they would take it or leave it. So the first one of today
Hold on.
Yes.
You're on a loop. It's all we get feedback.
Oh, am I getting feedback?
People ping in the chat. You can hear the feedback. I can hear it too. Is that what I sound like?
How about now? Do you still hear the feedback?
It's delayed big time too.
Okay, hold up.
I think it's all of us though. I think Social just shit the bed. This is a Social.
Got you. Yeah, we've been experiencing, or I've been experiencing some delays with Social Live. So please be patient with us. Let's see here.
Well,
so the users can't hear it. It's just us.
Oh, it's just us?
I can't do it. It's too loud. It feels like that movie Labyrinth.
Oh, got you.
Wait, you can't hear it? You can't hear it?
I can't hear any delays at all.
It's delayed by about 3 seconds. So I say it and then it plays right back for me.
Hold up.
This is wild. I feel like me and Keenan both took the same weird pill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what we do here. Hold on. I don't know how to solve this.
Let's try this again. I've been muting and everything, but let me try to send this out again. Hold up. I'm gonna send the segment intro again.
Take it or leave it.
Okay. How about now?
You're fine now.
Oh,
Fine
okay.
now.
We got it. Okay.
Good job.
Sorry for the sudden interruption. We had technical difficulties.
So here's a great example. I can't hear, the volume's not that loud, but we didn't solve for it because it's not that bad. But the pain was big enough in the present, so we all stopped what we were doing.
But watch this. So I got to get you off Sandler. The problem was big enough because we couldn't continue the program.
No. The pain was big enough to turn it into a problem. It's only a problem if I solve for it. So like earlier, I didn't solve for it because the pain wasn't bad enough. When the pain's egregious enough that I'm like, I can't even hear myself think. That was the most wild thing that I've ever seen.
Okay, but watch this. But really, was it because you couldn't hear yourself think? That really wasn't what made the pain a problem. What was becoming the problem?
Oh, that I wouldn't be able to keep going. The impact. I wouldn't be able to keep going. We'd have to cancel the episode.
You have to cancel the episode. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so there you go. All right. So.
All right. Now that the problem's solved, we're on to this next segment called Take It or Leave It. This is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Becc and Keenan let us know whether they would take it or leave it. So, Keenan, your first take it or leave it for today is upsell credit going to an AE. Take it or leave it.
Upsell credit going to the AE. I don't believe in upsell. I'm not even trying to answer that question. I think upsell is a horrible, horrible, horrible term, because basically what upsell means is they were looking to buy this and you sold them this and then you added this stuff on. Mm-hmm. That's the definition of an upsell. The way I view the world is, if this is what they needed all 4 of these things. Why did you sell them these 2 and add these later? You should have just sold them the 4 things. You said, look, based on what you said, based on your problems, impacts, root causes, blah, 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 I recommend these 4 things. Here's why. There should be no upsell. Like literally, an upsell should not be a thing. If you sold them what they need right out of the gate, there's no upsell. Now, if you're saying sell after the fact, like they bought it and 6 months or a year later, you sold them something else because you learned something new or their environment changed, that's an entirely different story. And of course you pay them.
All right, what about you, Becc? Take it or leave it.
The answer still isn't there. So who do you think the credit should go to? CSM or AE?
The rep, there should be some, look, it depends on how the organization's set up. That's different. I don't care which. AE can run it for a year, turn over to CSM, I don't really care. I don't give a shit. It just needs to be clear who's responsible for it after the fact.
Becc, what do you think?
I'm in most cases, a leave it. Meaning I don't think that the AE should get credit for the upsell, because what I see happen is they close the initial land and then they pass off to the CSM. They never talk to the deal again. And then all of a sudden the CSM uncovers a whole bunch of problems and, essentially start selling them products because of it, because they uncover all the problems and all of a sudden the AE gets credit for that. So I don't feel like if the AE was really involved with that customer or saw that coming now, I think there's a difference between that and enterprise sales. A lot of times enterprise sales people will purchase like a pilot of like 50 to 100 seats of something just to see that it works within the organization. And then they sell to the rest of the team like because of it. In that case scenario, I do believe that the upsell within a time contingent period should go to the account executive. But by and large, I'm a leave it, because I usually see the CSM as the one that's taking care of them, and then the AE checks in every once in a while whenever it's like renewal, they're metric on that, etc.
All right, the next take it or leave it is sending a follow-up email after discovery with a summary of a meeting and action steps. Becc, take it or leave it.
It seems I get one TVIT. It's a little cheesy to me. It's a little cheesy to me. Now, if you owe them stuff, then for sure. But I think it's a little much to me to summarize for them. I think buyers are getting really. I think we should go over on the timing for this one. By the way, I want to get
that's totally fine.
I want to get Keenan's take, but it feels a little technique ridden for me, and buyers are getting really, really sensitive to us hunting for pain and asking provoking questions and trying to get them to think, and they're feeling it more and more and more and more and more within the room. And it's usually used as a technique. Now, if you owe them something or you promise them something or, yada, 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 then I am an advocate, of course, of a follow-up email. You should give them what you said you would. And I think it's time contingent within 24 hours because it's communication of how well you're going to take care of them in the moment. But, a la jolt effect, reminding anyone of their pain, especially through a follow-up email, is actually going to make them recoil. So I don't love the whole, we uncovered this in our meeting. It just feels like a technique to me. Now, I understand why people have done it, but I think that I think it is a technique how it's used, 99.9% repeating. And I think it's used to close them. And I just don't see doctors sending follow-up emails of this is what we landed on in our time. They uncover it. And then now if the doctor owes them something, then of course. So I'm a TVIT. If I had to pick, I'm gonna leave it.
All right, Keenan, what about you? What do you think? Take it or leave it?
Take it. Doctors do that. When you leave, they print out something that says what they found, what they thought it was, blah, 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 what the recommendation is. If you have a follow-up appointment, etc., they do that. I don't think you have to do it, but I think it's a take it. I think what you do, though, is you have to restate the problem as you heard it, right? Say, hey, thanks a lot, Becc. I appreciate the time. Listen, I want to make sure I got this right. You're struggling with these types of things. You believe this is the revenue you're losing. You believe this. We discussed some of the reasons it's happening. Am I getting that right? And we're going to have a follow-up call. So I like it to get validation on the problem is uncovered and any next steps. But if not that, then no.
Little belated horn, but I thought it was necessary. Now
I agree. That was good. That was good.
Thank you very much. Well, we're on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
the inbox.
This is the segment where Keenan and Becc answer questions from our audience. And to help us with that is our trusty mailbox. Now, who sent us mail today? This first one is from Nipun Chandra from AXA. I actually do not know where that is, but hey, Keenan and Becc. Any tips to improve active listening skills while still being agile, impromptu, and practicing critical thinking skills? Sometimes I hear a client say something and I want to immediately jump on it and add something to that, but end up losing out on what they say after that. Do you just shut up and take notes until they're done talking? But if I'm taking notes, I find it hard to actually be thinking critically about what they are saying. Becc, what are your thoughts on this one?
Can you say that last part again? Read that.
Just shut up and take notes until they're done talking. If I see that if I'm taking notes, I find it hard to actually be thinking critically about what they are saying.
Oh, interesting. Well, as a quick antidote pill, I see a lot of people prescribe active listening and curiosity. And I'm like, well, yes and no. Curiosity about the right things, meaning I'm not actively listening to actively listen because it will make them feel better. I'm actively listening because I'm listening for the data that I need to diagnose. A lot of times they're leading me in a direction where I'm not getting the data that I need. And so I get them back on track. I'm not necessarily now, by and large, I'm always a strong advocate of if you're cutting them off because you can't help yourself from telling a story or telling them anything, that is a huge no-no. But if you're cutting them off because you have 5 minutes left on the clock and you still need 4 other pieces of information to appropriately diagnose. And like, I do it with my buyers all the time. In my opinion, that's what a doctor does. They're like, yeah, okay, I got enough here. Now I need to know about these 3 other areas, and I only have 5 more minutes before you're going to leave the room. You know, so I think that too many people are misdiagnosing the root cause of why their sales calls are going poorly. They're like, oh, well, I'm not actively listening. I'm not curious about my buyer, so that makes them feel like I'm not listening. I'm like, well, sure, but like what you're really not doing is your focal point needs to be diagnosing. And so active listening, just like, you're like, you know, I'm like, you could hear a pin drop from my side on those calls usually. I'm never telling a story. I'm never giving an example, you know, on the call.
What about you, Keenan? What do you think?
That was a deep question. I don't think I'm smart enough to answer it. So what I'll simply say is this. I listen to understand. I just listen to understand. So I'll ask a question because I want to understand a piece of information. So if anything isn't helping me understand, I don't know, I zone it out or ignore it or whatever, but I'm not paying much attention to it. But if it's helping me process what I don't understand, then I'm intently listening, and listening to me is thinking while hearing. Now I'm making this shit up, but I like that. Listening to me is thinking while hearing. Not just hearing, but thinking while hearing. What did they say? What's the impact of that? What's the purpose of that? How does that relevant to this conversation? How can I help them? What are they hurting? Why aren't they hurting? Like, I'm just thinking while I'm listening so that I can understand, not so I can react, so I can understand.
That's brilliant when you think about it, though. And it's not something that many people do, you know? So an example being, I don't like chit chat in the beginning, especially people I don't know. Like, I'm like, when they're like, ask me, I'm like, stop. I just want to cut into the meat. And on my buyer side too, when I'm in a discovery, I'm like, I don't really care how your weekend was. I don't. I care about solving your problem. That doesn't make me a bad person. That makes me in sales, right? Solving their problems. But sometimes I can tell they want to talk a little. So I'm like, okay, I'll give them this 10 seconds. They don't think I'm a jerk, that I don't care about them. But then I'm like off to the races of diagnosing, because Keenan's point, like, and I think that can't be understated, what he said. It can't be. It cannot be understated. You should be actively listening to understand. And then your questions come when you don't understand.
Yes. The questions come when you don't understand. Yes. And when I understand, I move on to the next thing.
Becc?
Déjà, je suis parfait in France. I'm still perfect in Paris. I did, by the way, on the street the other day, I heard someone say in French, there are 2 girls, they're like, but she looks like the girl in Emily in Paris, right? And I'm like, first of all, I know what you're saying. That's huge. Second of all, I wish. It's getting dark in here. Okay, no.
Just a little bit, but it's okay. You know, well, with that, we're going on to the next segment of this podcast, Keenan's personal favorites, which is
the challenge.
Mine was take it or leave it.
Oh, is yours take it or leave it? That's my bad. It's mine, and I'm assuming Becc that she gets to. She likes to. Becc, you seem like the.
Y'all have never even asked.
You always see my favorite is inbox.
Men's
yours
is inbox. Keenan's is take it or leave it. No.
Men. You always say my favorite.
Oh yeah, mine is inbox. Mine is inbox.
Men's is inbox. Keenan's take it or leave it, and y'all have never even asked what mine is.
What is yours, Becc?
Yours is all of them. As long as you get a chance to go on a roll.
I'm gonna turn on more lights. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is the segment where Becc and Keenan break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. And today's challenge is how to build and perfect a go-to-market strategy. So, Keenan, why don't you start us off with this one?
Oh, hell no. Hell no. This is all Becc, so Becc goes first. Are you kidding me?
I did not. You can't pass.
I get like 1 pass per month, and I'm taking it right now.
With all your sins, you get 1 yearly. Annual.
Are you serious? What are you talking about, Pope Becc? You have been in freaking Paris too long. No, I'm taking it. I am taking my pass.
You know, I am so sorry, Becc, but he has not yet done a pass this year, from my knowledge.
Wait, but hypothetically, I haven't done a pass this episode, so couldn't I pass right now?
No.
Actually, that's what I'm going to do.
No.
All right, let's try this. Let's try this out. So Keenan passes to Becc. Hello, Becc. What are your thoughts on this one?
Okay. Let Keenan have it. I mean, after all, it is 8:45 his time. Anywho, how to build and perfect a go-to-market strategy. I think, yeah, he's sacrificing a lot. Let's go ahead.
You do a little, I'll do a little. You do a little, I'll do a little.
So I think the first piece that is paramount with perfecting your go-to-market strategy before you do anything else is to identify what problems you solve for what buyer persona and what companies typically present the environment today that where a problem exists. I think that is the first piece of it, is identifying who your buyers are and being open-ended, like open-handed about that, to validate, within the room with your customers. Almost like have a thesis, build a thesis in your head of what are the buyer personas that you solve what problem for in terms of each persona, and then what types of companies present those environment where they would have a problem. That's going to be step one. And then
step two. Step two would be understanding the mediums and the messages to capture their attention. And I believe where this is most difficult for people, and in some cases you could argue the most successful put the most amount of time into it, and are the most creative. And I mean, opening the kimono here, we battle this every day here. We've been highly successful in some of our go-to-market strategies, and we have been successful in others. And what happens here is I over-index on the creative piece and the go-to-market channels, which channels are we going to use, et cetera, et cetera. And my team over-indexes on who should we go after and what do they look like and all the operational piece. And so sometimes it's a good blend, sometimes it's not. But I believe personally that you have the messaging wins every time. And then the messaging on the right distribution platform is the most powerful combination you can have. And they're dictated by what you said. Who am I going after? What problems do I solve? Do they have those problems? And how can I connect with them to see those problems? And that's different with every buyer, every environment, every industry. That's duh.
That's duh. Becc, what is 3 in French?
Trois.
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 On dit trois, quatre, cinq, six.
Menage trois.
9, 10. You realize that
trois.
I study French 3 hours a day. My head is melting into the ground.
Trois hours.
Oh, did you know? Did you know that they call a potato an apple of the earth? Une pomme de terre.
Pomme de terre.
Oh, and I also learned the word for penguin today, so that was a game changer. Moved the needle for sure.
Okay, she's burning time. Let's go with trois.
Okay,
menage a trois.
The third part of go-to-market strategy, from my perspective, I'll throw 2 in there, is getting your KPI systems tight across the funnel to where 1 + 2 = 3, meaning your marketing KPIs, your sales development KPIs, your AE KPIs, your CSM KPIs, cross-sell, upsell, renewal, and gearing them in a way to where it's not the absolute merde show that it is, shit show that it is today.
Merde.
Yeah. So today it makes no freaking sense. 0 freaking sense. People are KPI'd on MQLs. It just means anyone who downloaded content has no context as to whether they're the right title, the right company, any kind of firmographic criteria, sales development. Same thing, like in terms of you get same amount of points for someone who's a SVP of enterprise and a manager of SMB. So they very naturally book the manager of SMB, so it's easier. And the AE is the same with cross-sell, upsell, renewal. So my third step is get your KPIs to where they actually are tight and get people to work together. And the second piece of that is get your lead routing tight. It is about process, process, process. Starbucks is global because of process. They are the kings of process. So the handoff process from marketing, sales development, it's gated straight through, that they don't have to list clean, that they don't have to like go into some random thing in HubSpot and go through and assign people out, demo request process. And then when I book a meeting on an AE's calendar, the process of the follow-up so that they don't no-show and that the AE actually shows up, and then the process that they say that something's qualified, you know, or they just going to leave it open-ended of like, oh, it's an SQO whenever I decide that it's an SQO and I'm measuring conversion, so I'm going to do it right before it closes. Like, you have got to think about lead routing process for your buyer's sake. If you are listening to this and you haven't,
watch what she does here.
Or a marketer or a sales development leader, go shop yourself today. Find someone to go shop you and pretend like they're a very qualified buyer and just see what happens to you. You will be shocked. And start watching the emails that your reps are sending it. Spend 15 minutes every single day to see what emails your reps are sending out and how many of them. Those are the two biggest tips I have to you, and you will autocorrect when you find out what they're doing. So that is the third piece.
Piece trois.
Hey, Keenan?
Piece quatre.
De trois.
La piece prochaine. Quatre.
De trois quoi?
Quatre. Quatre. It's Q-A-T-R-E. Quatre.
I knew it was a Q, though. All right, look, so mine's going to be sort of a PS, right? And so it's not a process. It's probably going to bother Becc a lot. But I think the other thing you have to do is you have to, or I'll make it a process. You have to have a pivot strategy. So you need to build, so to process this, you have to figure out a way to have a pivot strategy, because not every go-to-market medium or message or approach or target market's going to work. It is a very big a trial and error. And I think it's what a lot of people miss is they get it in place and they set it and forget it, and they don't see what's going on. They don't measure it. They don't really build a pivot strategy. So you really got to understand where to pivot. You got to be collecting the data. You'll be asking the questions continually. What's working? What's not working? At both the macro and micro level. Like macros, we had ads in Wall Street Journal and we did LinkedIn. Well, Wall Street didn't work. Wall Street Journal did work on Sundays, but not the rest of the time. And LinkedIn didn't work at all. Great. Stop those two and go do something else now. Right. But it could also be at the micro level. It's like it didn't work at the Wall Street Journal, but it was a shitty ad. Let's try to change the ad, then try it again. So it's trying to bump all those. It was it Wall Street Journal or was it the ad? Was it the ad or was it LinkedIn? Was it both? Was it neither? So you just got to build a pivot strategy in and be prepared to change and pivot as quickly as possible.
Wow.
I want you to keep going.
Whole 4 seconds early.
Nothing more to say.
So, what was the pivot strategy that you had in your brain?
I didn't have one in my brain.
Okay. Why do you think that's so important?
Because from someone who's literally, I'm marketing and sales oriented. That's how my brain works. Mm-hmm. And so I have all these stupid ideas, and some blow up and are awesome and others don't. But if I keep trying to push it up, Sisyphus, I keep trying to push that rock uphill, man, it's just going to tumble back to the bottom. I got to at least switch, go do something else.
Mm-hmm. I think Keenan's either dying or he's done something really messed up to me, because he just used Sisyphus and he knows that I'm like.
I was trying to figure out after I said that, I'm like, let me see if I can tie Damocles' sword into this whole thing too. and then I was thinking maybe I can get really, really good and try Tantalus into it as well. But that was just too much. And even Beck's like, wait, who's Tantalus?
I don't know. Je ne sais pas.
I got you.
Qui est? C'est qui?
Oh my goodness. Keenan outbraining Becc? Oh my goodness. Well, before we end our podcast, we have just one more thing. This is the segments where Becc and Keenan share with us what's on their mind and give us their closing thoughts. So for this one, I am going to start with Becc. Becc, what is your just one more thing?
Dude, what the?
So I just saw the ultimate stare of betrayal right now. I'm so sorry.
I was caught off guard too, but here we go.
What too brute? I thought it was Keenan.
Oh, it was because Keenan was on the page beforehand.
I know. I think Min's just mad that I've been enjoying my life in Paris and I haven't been calling him.
I've been way too jealous.
So, my one more thing, I actually want to continue on what Keenan was saying. So what he's describing is of pivoting takes number one, a loss of ego, which I think is extremely important in business, or having the right ego. And like having the ego, being focused on helping your team win as opposed to being right all the damn time. I think it's extremely important. And it also takes actually intelligence statistically. People who are wildly intelligent will tend to have the trait of they will pivot based on new understanding. Meaning if they understand something different, if you're smart, then you change your viewpoint, you know? And if you aren't so smart, then you're going to just double down in the mud. And I think it's extremely important for reps, leaders, anyone, of like, you try something out based on the first piece of this is make the most educated hypothesis that you can, meaning educate yourself beforehand on what you think about the market. Don't just like go make an educated guess. And I see 99.9% of people making uneducated guesses. A lot of the advice that I see online that I disagree with very heavily, I can tell it's not because they're not smart. It's because they didn't read something that I've read that showed me a different understanding, right? Which if they had read it, they probably wouldn't have that viewpoint. So point being, I think the first part is be very educated when you make a hypothesis, but when you realize, be married to the data of what actually works and what doesn't work. And when your guess was wrong, be completely savagely okay with pivoting based on that data. Because you're only hurting yourself if you slow down and if you don't want to hear that your answer was wrong. Like in the short, I guess it feels a little bit better, but in the long term, no one can be successful because you want to be married to an opinion that you had that's clearly showing you that the data was wrong. So I think develop an opinion, but then have an open hand that if you're presented, and it is a skill, it is a practice skill, that when you're presented that like this email idea that you thought was great tanks, try to understand why, but don't keep sending it. There are a good amount of people that when they find out that their workout isn't getting them to their goal because of 4 different criteria, they keep doing it because they've been doing it for 10 years and it sucks to admit that they were wrong. So I'm like, just be the bigger man in the room. Pivot whenever you find out something that shows you that there's a better way to do things that will help you and your team get to your goals. That's my last thing. Keenan, what do you think? Quoi penses-tu? Sorry.
My just one more thing is Becc was right.
What's going on?
J'adore.
Becc was right. Listen to Becc. So with that note, everybody, thank you for, you've been listening to Sales Top to Bottom with me.
Yeah. Von Deotonbach, Sales Top to Bottom.
There we go. See y'all next week.
Becc Holland. Until next time.
Next week.
Peace. We're out.